welcome to another episode of Anthony's Asylum. I am your host, Anthony, and just a brief update from last week for those of you who listened to my last episode. China is doing a lot better. I guess something came out where there was a journalist or somebody grossly exaggerating what China's economic state was. And and I guess the markets are bouncing back. Everything's looking good here in the U.S. and elsewhere in the globe. So, hey, you don't need to worry anymore, guys. Anyway, this episode, I want to talk about Metal Gear Solid 5. It released this week. Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain is the complete title. And then I wanted to go into some documentaries I've been watching, actually, and some that I actually watched when I was sick. And believe it or not, watching documentaries while you're sick is a great thing. I don't know why, but it's just something I decided to do. So I want to talk about the ones that I did watch and just some recommendations for you guys and girls. And also, I wanted to talk about Force Friday, of course. As of this recording, it is a couple days before Force Friday, but this recording will be releasing, this podcast episode will be releasing on Force Friday. So, yeah, for you guys listening, you guys and girls listening right now, it is Force Friday. So I will be talking a little bit about that, and of course, I'm very excited. So, let's just jump in. Alright, so Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. Pretty big game, very big game. And for those of you, sorry, I can't even talk right now. For those of you who do not know what Metal Gear Solid is, or the Metal Gear series in general, it is, as you may have guessed, a video game series. It's actually one of the oldest video game series around. It's been around since the 80s. And it started on, I believe, I may be wrong, and correct me if I am wrong for anybody who does know, but it started with the first game called simply Metal Gear, and it was released on the original Nintendo. And it was huge. It was a huge success. It was a tactical espionage stealth game, essentially. It was kind of like a top-down view, so obviously 2D. 2D graphics, 8-bit graphics, top down, and you just kind of went from room to room, essentially, trying to avoid, enemies and different things that were trying to kill you and whatever. And so that was the beginning of this huge legacy of video games that has survived for so long. I mean, you think about video game series that have started in the 80s and are pretty strong now. I mean, you can probably just count on your one hand probably what those games are. And Metal Gear is one of them. Obviously Mario, you have Zelda, you have Final Fantasy. There are definitely some great games that are still around, but Metal Gear to me has always been great. And unfortunately, I never had the chance to play the original Metal Gear, and I never played its sequel. When I got into the Metal Gear series was with Metal Gear Solid, which is technically what the series is called now. But Metal Gear Solid came out in 1998, for PlayStation 1, and it was, it was the first game that I ever played that it felt like you were playing a movie. I mean, it elevated the fact that they were playing a game. And this wasn't just, getting from point A to point B, or jumping on platforms, or, shooting a bunch of dudes up. This was just cinematic storytelling and action and, some great voice acting, just everything about it, and even the graphics at that time. I mean, now you can look at it and be like, that's freaking dated, of course. But man, at that time, I was like, whoa, I was just blown away by everything they were doing, and I loved the cutscenes. You know, it was one of the first games I played that actually had cutscenes like that were integrated, fully integrated. I mean, it was using the in-game engine, you know, pretty much seamlessly cut in. I mean, it felt like you were just playing this big Hollywood blockbuster movie, and it didn't disappoint. And so yeah, and that was, and of course, my love for Metal Gear Solid was born at that point. And then Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty came out in 2001, I believe. It was either 2001 or 2002. I think it's 2001 for the PlayStation 2. Again, you know, if you've played Metal Gear Solid and then went into Metal Gear Solid 2, it just elevated everything once again. It just, you know, kicked everything up a notch and then some. But the interesting thing this time is that it was on a new system and everything was like, you know, totally new in terms of like the graphics, and you're like, holy crap, this is amazing. And God, yeah, jeez. Anyway, sorry, I'm probably not doing a very good job at. So anyway, the Metal Gear series, though, let's just talk about Metal Gear Solid in terms of the protagonist of the series. Up until recently, actually, has always been a character called Solid Snake. And he is a sort of, you know, covert operative, an expert at infiltration, that kind of thing, which is, you know, obviously explains the whole like stealth aspect of the game. He can get in, you know, avoid obstacles, avoid enemies, that kind of thing. And if he needs to use force, he will, obviously. But the main goal of all the games is to kind of get into a base or some kind of location, you know, avoid enemy detection, and, you know, acquire an item or rescue somebody or something to that effect, and then get out, you know, again, without hopefully triggering any alarms or getting the attention of enemies or anything like that, you know. So, and that was always the main goal of all the games that I've played anyway. And Metal Gear Solid is no different. Essentially, it's, again, you're with Solid Snake, and you have this team of people who are helping you through the game, and that kind of creates some of the story aspects. So you always have radio contact. You know, people, instead of like, it was interesting because instead of like this HUD system or like a mission system or something like that, it was always your teammates, you know, the people that were helping you on the other line on your codec system is what they called it, telling you exactly what you needed to do and that kind of thing. And I don't know, it just added this like whole new element to all this, to just you know, besides just mindlessly like mowing down a bunch of enemies, like in a shooter, for instance, or just jumping over a bunch of obstacles and jumping on the heads of enemies like a platformer, you know what I mean? It just added like this whole new subgenre, and I think is just fantastic and still kind of remains it's amazing that it remains so prominent to this day. And of course, like I said, Metal Gear Solid 2 sort of progressed that. And then Metal Gear Solid 3 came out. Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater is what it was called, which was essentially the first time you were playing as a character called Big Boss, or a character who becomes Big Boss. And this is essentially Solid Snake's father. And without getting into too many details, because there's just so many. I mean, the thing is, if you've played this series, you will know exactly what I'm talking about and what I'm trying to get into. If you haven't, then shame on you, but you need to somehow get updated. And I would recommend definitely playing the games if you can. But if not, there are definitely some handy guides all over the internet that you can look up. You know, cheaters guides, I would say, but whatever. But you can look up the story and everything and all the backstory. You know, if you're just getting into gaming now and you're like, Metal Gear Solid 5 came out and you're looking at all the reviews, it's getting great reviews, by the way. And you're just, you know, it's a huge game and you just want to get into it and you're just scared because of the fact that you've missed so much, then there are definitely handy guides on the internet to look up. So please do that. But anyway, without getting into too much detail and too much spoilerific stuff, in Metal Gear Solid 3, you are playing Solid Snake's father, essentially, and you're playing in the 1960s. And it's basically a story about how he the origins of where a lot of the stuff in Metal Gear Solid and Metal Gear Solid 2 come from. So it's a very, very good installment. Very sort of 60s spy action James Bond type stuff, which I loved when I played it. So awesome installment right there. And I believe that one came out in 2003 or 2004. Again, anybody who knows the exact date, please let me know and just leave a comment. But and again, awesome. And then it was like a few years until Metal Gear Solid 4 came out. Metal Gear Solid 4. Oh man, what was the subtitle for that one? Great, now I'm gonna freak out. As you can see, I am incredibly prepared for this podcast. No, but anyway, Metal Gear Solid 4 came out in it's going to come to me. It's definitely going to come to me. Oh, jeez, I know it, but I'm going to be freaking out the whole time. Metal Gear Solid 4 came out in 2008. So you had a bit of a gap between games there, and that came out on the PS3. And perhaps that was the first one to be multi-platform, if I'm not mistaken. So it was PS3 and Xbox 360, I think, at that time. Again, I could be wrong about that. But again, just another visual leap in terms of graphics. I mean, just like, whoa, you know. And then also introducing new elements. So now we have an older Solid Snake. We're not sure how much older. We do know that it takes place a little bit in the future. It's definitely after the events of Metal Gear Solid 2, because Solid Snake has now aged considerably. Again, I don't want to reveal too much because you guys should. I would, like I said, I recommend playing the games, but if you need to, there are definitely places you can look online for the story information. But Snake ages considerably. You know, he's got gray hair now. He's pretty old. And of course, he's on another mission to save the world, you know. Great story, great cinematics. I believe it actually holds the record for the longest end game cutscene in any video game ever. I think it was over an hour long, and I remember watching that and actually just, I didn't mind at all. I mean, it was just so fantastic, so good. And like I said, it was just, anyway. So that was 2008, and now finally we have Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, in 2015. Oh my gosh, guys. Get your act together, Kojima. Anyway, Hideo Kojima is, of course, the creator of the Metal Gear series. Has pretty much directed every installment, at least these main console installments. I know I'm leaving out some other games for those of you who are fans. Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes was a sort of prequel to Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, which came out, I believe it was either last year or 2013. And it was just kind of a short sort of episode, if you will, that kind of, you know, told a different side. And I think it was, again, Big Boss that you were playing. I didn't really play that one either. And then there were other installments on PSP. Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, I believe. And then there was another one that I can't think of the name right now. But anyway, all the main console versions of the games I have played. And like I said, again, they are developed by Kojima Productions, the head of that company. And the director of all the games is Hideo Kojima. And the publisher is Konami. Okay, so like I said, I kind of went through a brief history of Metal Gear Solid for you. Hopefully that helps. But now we have Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, which came out September 1st of this year and is already getting fantastic reviews. But this installment drastically changes the formula, as it were. So like I was saying before, it was sort of, the series was always, you know, its tagline was always tactical espionage action, you know. And you were primarily doing stealth stuff and that kind of thing. And the stealth element definitely remains in Metal Gear Solid 5. But now we have this huge open world to play with. And your home base, which there's never been a home base in any of the games before, is crazy. It's called Mother Base, and you're essentially, it's out in the ocean, out in the middle of nowhere, and you're basically building it. So it's become sort of like this crazy like Sim City type game. I don't know how else to describe it. But you're sort of like building on top of it, making it bigger, making it, more extravagant. You're adding employees, you're adding people, specialists, agents, all kinds of stuff to help out with the place. And this is all going on as you're progressing through the game. And you have choice. You have choice now to, what do you want to add onto your base? What do you want to do with it? What's more important to you? Is it, research and development? Is it, defense? Is it, you know what I mean? So there's all these kinds of things to consider now. And then on top of that, like I said, actually having this open world now to explore, these different locations. The Metal Gear Solid series has always been famous for being very linear and very, it was always determined, like you had very small locations, and you always knew where you had to go, for the most part, And it was always, most of them usually took place in maybe, 2 or 3 really big locations, and then sort of smaller segmented locations within those locations. Like, so you were, for instance, at like a big base, but then as you went into the base, there were like buildings you would go into. So there was this one building, and then that maybe would have 3 or 4 rooms, and then you would clear those rooms and move on to another building. Obviously getting keys and that kind of thing, unlocking the game as you went. Now, Metal Gear Solid 5 is, like I said, very different in that respect. You're still dealing with stealth. You can still be an action hero if you want as well. I mean, that's not usually the way I've played Metal Gear Solid, but I know some people who do. And you can do it great with this new game as well. But you have this open world scenario now where you can just kind of go anywhere, traverse anything. They also have a fast travel, which you can do, but you can just go. I mean, it's cool. You can ride a horse, you can helicopter in, you can do all this kind of stuff. You can parachute in, you can parachute people out, which is crazy. You can parachute your horse out. It just looks insane. So yeah, I mean, I have not played it yet. I am eagerly awaiting it. Unfortunately, like I said, you guys already know, I pre-ordered Destiny: The Taken King, so I am eagerly awaiting when that releases. So I currently do not have the funds to get Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, but my birthday is coming up and Christmas, so yeah, I'm hoping. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid 5, what's coming up, man? But anyway, like I said, just getting really good reviews. Looks fantastic. Yeah, I mean, like I said, this is the game for those people who are maybe not that into video games, but really want to get a good story and some great cinematic action, some great characters. This series has it all. And Metal Gear Solid 5, from what I've been reading, is no different. And just pick it up, guys. Play it. It is available on PlayStation 4 as well as the Xbox One and PC. And I believe it is also available on the older systems. Yeah, actually it's available on PS3 and Xbox 360. So yeah, any of you people who are on the older generation of systems, you can pick it up. Although you won't get the high graphical fidelity that you do with the PS4, Xbox One, or PC versions. But anyway, but yeah, on Game Informer, it has a 9.25. It was reviewed by Joe Juba. And he says, let's see here, I wanted to pick something out here. He says, the gameplay, storytelling, and protagonists in Metal Gear may shift with each new installment, but Kojima's ability to surprise and enthrall gamers remains unchanged. And so he talks a little bit about, the open world, the customizable base, variable mission structure. These are not traditional aspects of Metal Gear, but they are what makes the Phantom Pain such an exceptional game. Yeah, God, fantastic. Anyway, Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. But I want to move on a little bit. I just wanted to have a little bit more time to talk about some things here. Documentaries. Documentary film is a huge subgenre of the industry, a huge leg, I guess, if you will, that has been around for probably about the same time as traditional film has, narrative film, if you will. Without giving you too much of a history lesson, guys, I love documentaries. Documentaries are fantastic. Unfortunately, I was much more into them when I was in film school, in which we were required to watch a lot of documentaries, and I took documentary classes and that kind of thing, and it was fantastic. I mean, I wasn't bored or anything. I mean, it's what I wanted to do, and that's what I love to do, is just watch movies, whether they're documentaries or narrative films or what have you. But anyway, I haven't been watching that many lately, especially in the past few years, and I feel kind of like bad about it. But it was interesting when I was sick. I have Netflix and Hulu Plus and all that, and so I was sick in bed, and I was just like, okay, what can I watch? I needed to like get over this pain and all this other crap, and just like I just needed to like veg out and kind of let my mind go on autopilot, And for some reason, especially on Netflix, there were just these documentaries that were like popping up, like recommended for me, and I'm like, oh, cool, I never even heard of that. Sure, why not? A few of those that I just want to talk about and kind of mention. I watched Milius, which is about writer-director John Milius. For those of you unfamiliar with Milius's work, he was primarily a writer. He wrote Apocalypse Now, and then moved into like directing and stuff like that. And he's famous for Red Dawn. He's famous for Conan the Barbarian. Trying to think of what else right now. But like one of the things that made that man so interesting, he actually came. He was of that same group in the 70s. Like George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Coppola, Scorsese, all those guys that were just around that era that kind of transformed cinema at that time. And he was kind of like the wildest one of them all. He was the big talker. He was huge. I mean, there's a picture of him standing next to George Lucas, and George Lucas, of course, is a pretty short guy, but John Milius is like towering over this diminutive George Lucas, and it just looks funny. But he was a huge guy. He's like well over 6 feet tall, and he was also very of a different mind from these other filmmakers, And a lot of what the documentary explores is, the man versus the myth, that kind of thing. What is real? What is not? Because, like I said, he had some very right-leaning political thoughts, political ideas, concepts, which differed, a lot from a lot of his peers and his friends and that kind of thing. And he was very brash and very open about everything, and just very loud, and had so many conflicts with studio heads, with executives, with all kinds of people, producers, which made it hard for him to really, make the movies that he wanted. And he did make some movies that were really great and really controversial. Specifically Red Dawn. After Red Dawn, he says he was blacklisted, but I don't know. Everyone else says, oh, well, he just didn't come up with anything anymore. And so that's what caused kind of the drought in his career. And, he never really bounced back after that, which was interesting. But anyway, highly recommended. Definitely watch Milius. Another one I watched was called Lost Soul, again about filmmakers, this time primarily about Richard Stanley and his doomed attempt to remake The Island of Dr. Moreau in 1996. And of course, if you have seen Dr. Moreau, The Island of Dr. Moreau, the 96 version, that is not directed by Richard Stanley. It was directed by John Frankenheimer and was greatly changed from what we would have seen. But anyway, it's basically this behind the scenes look at how crazy Hollywood can get, and how, something that may have started really fantastically and like everyone was so excited about it can end up being this piece of trash that will be forever burned in people's memory as one of the worst movie experiences of all time. So yeah, just, oh man, if you're into like the whole Hollywood process and that kind of thing, and all the things that can go wrong with it, then watch that movie. It's called Lost Soul: The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's The Island of Dr. Moreau. So again, available on Netflix. And then the other documentary was, again, another one about filmmakers. So you may be seeing a pattern here, but it was called The Kingdom of Dreams and Madness, which is actually a movie about Hayao Miyazaki and his team at Studio Ghibli. And Studio Ghibli are famous for doing some very good anime movies, such as Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, Howl's Moving Castle, so just a lot. Castle in the Sky, I mean, just a lot of stuff. Ponyo, everything I've watched by them is just fantastic. And I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an anime fan. But those movies, oh man, Porco Rosso, oh man, just any one of those, just IMDb them, Google them, whatever. Unfortunately, they are not available on Netflix. They are not available on Hulu Plus. I believe you can only purchase them online, like on Amazon, or if you go to like, any kind of retail store. You can get them on Blu-ray and DVD. But yeah, fantastic. And it goes through the process of this animation studio. So they do traditional animation, like I said, anime. So it's all hand-drawn. It's all beautifully colored. I mean, it's fantastic. And it goes through this process of Miyazaki's new film. And it's just brilliant. And again, if you're really into animation in particular, as well as just learning the ins and outs of what it takes to be an animator, especially a director, especially somebody who is just, oh man, as prolific, as much of a genius as Miyazaki is, then yes, watch that movie. Put it on your list. Go watch it. And the last one I wanted to talk about was a movie called Cave of Forgotten Dreams. And this is a film written and directed by Werner Herzog. Again, another fantastic filmmaker. Famous for Fitzcarraldo. What was the other? Oh, Grizzly Man. He did Grizzly Man a few years ago, which was another great documentary. Just a lot of stuff. But anyway, this documentary is about a long-lost cave in France that was recently uncovered, exhumed, if you will, and discovered to actually house these cave paintings that have amazing drawings and sketches and paintings of animals and people and really amazing things. And it's believed to be the oldest cave of its kind, with the oldest cave paintings of their kind. And just a fascinating documentary. He interviews some of the people who researched the cave, who are going through it now, or and he was given limited access for him and a few other people, like a cameraman, a sound guy, to actually go into the caves and film them, and just they came up with some amazing footage. Just fantastic. If you're into just like history and historical significance and kind of like where we came from and that kind of thing, oh god, yeah, just watch Cave of Forgotten Dreams. Amazing. It has like an amazing score too, very good music and very good camera work. Actually, what was of note that really got me excited about it was there's a lot of drone footage used in the movie, which was like, yeah, cool, that's awesome. But anyway, yeah, so Cave of Forgotten Dreams, check that one out, okay guys. And finally, I wanted to move into Force Friday. For those of you listening on release day, Force Friday is today, And holy crap, we're going to get all the cool new Star Wars Force Awakens merchandise, gear, everything. No, actually, I'm not. Yeah, right. If I was rich, yeah, sure, what the heck, but no. I was actually considering taking my kids up to Denver for Force Friday. That's because the only Disney store we have in the area is up in Denver. And I don't know if I've mentioned before, but I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Yeah, there's the only Disney store that we have in the area is up in Denver, Colorado, up in the mall up there. And they're doing this huge reveal, and they're going to have this huge thing with all these cool Star Wars toys, and I guess they're going to do some giveaway stuff, and so it's going to be huge. And every major retailer is essentially doing something with Force Friday, which is just fascinating. It's unprecedented. I've never seen anything like this before. And it's going to be a huge move. Obviously, it's a huge move on Lucasfilm's part, on Disney's part. They're going to make so much bank, which kind of makes me depressed, actually. But at the same time, it makes me excited. I wish I was getting that money, but of course, no, that doesn't work that way. Yeah, everyone's doing it. Even if you don't have a Disney store in your area, Walmart's going to be doing something. Target, Hot Topic. Hot Topic is huge. I love that place. Let's see, what else? It's just going to be big. And we're finally going to be able to see, Lego's doing stuff. Everybody's doing stuff, but it's crazy. And we're finally going to be able to see some real concrete stuff. At least I'm hoping. I don't know. But we're finally going to be able to see, the villain, and hopefully more villains, who the other villains may be, like Kylo Ren. We already know him. We kind of have seen Captain Phasma. We kind of have seen, I guess, a guy called General Hux. I'm kind of excited to see who Andy Serkis is playing, if there's going to be a toy of his character or what. I know he's playing sort of a CGI character, so we won't really know. I don't think we'll be seeing, who he is until we see the movie, obviously. But and then, of course, the one I'm waiting for, I want to see confirmation of Luke Skywalker's new outfit. Now, I've seen the leaked footage. I talked about this last week or a couple weeks ago, that I'm going to be dressing as Luke Skywalker, and I'm hoping that they will have these costumes available, obviously, as the new Star Wars movie comes out in December. But yeah, it looks freaking cool, and I'm hoping that that's kind of like what he looks like, because that looks pretty badass. Sorry, didn't mean to say any bad words, but yeah, anyway, that on top of what's Leia going to look like, Han, whatever, I don't know, all these characters, of course, the new protagonist's Rey, right, played by Daisy Ridley. We have Finn, played by John Boyega, and then, of course, Oscar Isaac's character, who I believe, what's his name, Poe Dameron, I think, who's like an X-Wing fighter pilot or whatever. So just exciting stuff. And it's going to be the first step into, like I said, the huge hype that's just obviously just been building up, and will continue to build up until December. So anyway, so excuse my giddiness, but it's an exciting day for me because I'm just a huge Star Wars nerd, and it's going to be great. Anyway, I have to breathe here for a second. I hope you enjoyed this episode, guys. So Anthony's Asylum releases every Friday, and it's going to be releasing, or it does release on YouTube, SoundCloud, and iTunes. And I also have a Patreon page, guys, so if you would be so kind as to check that out. And just, the way you'll be really supporting me is just coming out and listening to my podcast, really, so, I want to get some feedback and just hear from you guys and see what you guys think about what I've been talking about, guys, in my little head, in my Anthony's Asylum. Well, that sounds kind of weird when I said it like that. In my asylum, I should just say in my asylum. I'm not one of those guys that talks about myself in the third person. No, I am not. Anthony is not that type of person. Oh, wait, what? Anyway, guys, thank you for listening. I will see you again next week. And, have a good week, guys. This is Anthony, signing out.